3 years ago, $400,000 bought you a house in dozens of suburbs within driving distance of a capital city. Today that list has shrunk to almost nothing. But almost nothing is not zero. And the suburbs that remain under $400,000 in 2026 are some of the most interesting buying opportunities in the country right now, for reasons that have nothing to do with desperation and everything to do with timing. Today I'm going to show you exactly where those suburbs are, state by state, what's actually driving prices up in each region, and, most importantly, which of these locations have genuine growth potential versus which ones are cheap for a reason that won't change. Because buying cheap and buying smart are not the same thing. And the difference between the two is what this video is actually about. Let's start with the national picture first, because you need to understand the backdrop before a suburb list means anything. The combined capital city median house price has now passed $1 million. Sydney sits at approximately $1.28 million. Melbourne hovers around $900,000. Brisbane has pushed past $1.12 million. Perth has surged to around $850,000. Adelaide is closing in on $800,000. Even Hobart, which was the affordable capital city as recently as 5 years ago, now sits above $650,000. So when we talk about suburbs under $400,000, we are talking about something that barely exists inside the capital city boundaries anymore. We are talking about a shrinking window. And windows close. Now, Queensland first, because it has the most genuine options left. Regional Queensland is still one of the most affordable property markets in the country, and it's not all mining towns and flood zones. There are pockets with real infrastructure, real employment, and real population growth that are still sitting well under the $400,000 mark. Toowoomba stands out. It's 2 hours west of Brisbane. It has a university, a major hospital, a growing logistics industry, and a population pushing 180,000. The median house price in outer Toowoomba suburbs sits around $350,000 to $380,000 in 2026. That is a city, not a town. With genuine amenity. And it's cheaper than most suburbs within 40 kilometres of Brisbane CBD. Rockhampton is another. Central Queensland. The median house price sits around $330,000 to $360,000. It has a strong beef and agricultural economy, a regional hospital, and sits on the highway connecting Brisbane to Cairns. Not a growth boomtown, but stable, affordable, and with a rental vacancy rate that still makes investment viable. Mackay deserves a mention. The resources sector supports strong wages in the region. The median house price is around $380,000 to $400,000, and rental yields are among the highest in Queensland at close to 6% gross. Here's the thing about Queensland's regional market that most buyers from the south miss. These aren't random cheap towns. They're regional cities with functioning economies. The risk isn't the same as buying in a town of 2,000 people that depends on one employer. Now, South Australia. Adelaide's outer ring used to be the affordable entry point. Most of it no longer qualifies under $400,000. But regional South Australia still does. Mount Gambier sits around $280,000 to $320,000 median. It's South Australia's second largest city. Timber and dairy industries underpin the economy. It has a TAFE, a hospital, and a population of around 32,000. The lifestyle is quiet, but the infrastructure is real. Port Augusta, around $220,000 to $260,000 median. Closer to Darwin in feel than Adelaide, honestly. Major transport crossroads, renewable energy projects underway, and genuinely the cheapest freestanding home you'll find in a city of its size in South Australia. Whyalla is interesting right now for a specific reason. The hydrogen and green steel projects being developed in the region are pulling significant infrastructure investment. The median sits around $180,000 to $220,000. The risk is real. This is a single industry-dependent town with a complicated economic history. But the upside, if the green energy investment delivers, is unlike anything else in this price bracket. This brings us to the first myth bust of the video. Most people assume cheap means bad. It doesn't automatically. Cheap can also mean early. The suburbs in Adelaide that now sit at $650,000 were under $300,000 in 2016. The people who bought there weren't gamblers. They were buyers who understood that population growth, infrastructure investment, and proximity to services create value over time, even when the market hasn't priced it yet. The question to ask about any cheap suburb isn't, why is it affordable? The question is, what would have to change for this to become expensive? If the answer is nothing realistic, walk away. If the answer is population growth and one decent infrastructure project, stay interested. Western Australia next. And this one is a split story. Perth itself is no longer under $400,000 in most suburbs. The median has surged approximately 60% in 3 years, driven by interstate migration and a resources boom. The cheap Perth suburbs of 2021 are now the $500,000 to $600,000 suburbs of 2026. But regional Western Australia is a different world. Kalgoorlie Boulder. Mining town, yes. But this isn't your grandfather's mining town. The Superpit gold mine is one of the largest open-cut gold mines in the world. The local economy is genuinely diversified across mining services, healthcare, and education. Median house prices sit around $280,000 to $320,000, and gross rental yields are pushing 7 to 8%. Geraldton. Coastal city, 420 kilometres north of Perth. Population around 40,000. Growing port facilities, a strong fishing and agriculture industry, and a median house price around $340,000 to $380,000. Sea changers from Perth are discovering it in numbers. That migration trend is early, but it's real. Albany. Southern WA. Tourism, agriculture, a growing retirement population. Median around $380,000 to $420,000, which edges above our threshold but represents genuinely livable coastal lifestyle at a fraction of Perth's price. Now Tasmania. And this one surprises people. Hobart is no longer affordable by any reasonable measure. But regional Tasmania still has pockets well under $400,000. Launceston's outer suburbs sit around $380,000 to $420,000, borderline but worth watching. The inner suburbs are higher. But satellite towns like Deloraine, Scottsdale, and the Georgetown area still offer house prices in the $250,000 to $350,000 range. The Tasmanian economy is more robust than it was a decade ago. Tourism, agriculture, and a growing creative and tech sector in Hobart are creating spillover demand for the whole state. The risk in rural Tasmania is thin rental markets and limited employment options. The opportunity is coastal lifestyle at a price that doesn't exist anywhere else in Australia at this quality. New South Wales. The hardest state of all on this topic. The Sydney Basin is comprehensively out. Even the outer ring, Penrith, Liverpool, Campbelltown, has pushed well above $700,000 for houses. You are not finding houses under $400,000 within commuting distance of Sydney. That story is finished. But regional New South Wales still has options. Broken Hill. Far West New South Wales. Median around $160,000 to $200,000. The cheapest freestanding homes in New South Wales, possibly in the country. Mining history, art scene, tourism. Genuinely one of the more interesting small cities in Australia culturally. The catch is isolation and a population that has been slowly declining for decades. This is a lifestyle buy, not an investment play. Dubbo. Central New South Wales. Regional city of 45,000 people. Agriculture, health, and education anchor the economy. The median sits around $380,000 to $420,000, right on the threshold. One of the most viable regional city buys in New South Wales at this price point. Orange. Known for its wine, food, and Four Seasons. Popular with Sydney tree changes. The median has pushed above $550,000 now. It's off the list. But it's a reference point. This is what happens to discovered regional cities over time. Which brings us to the second myth bust. The risk isn't always buying cheap. Sometimes the risk is waiting. If the trajectory of Australian property over the past 2 decades tells us anything, it's that the affordable regional city of today has a strong historical tendency to become the unaffordable regional city of a decade from now. Orange was $300,000 in 2015. Toowoomba was $280,000 in 2018. The window is open. It has consistently closed. Now, the Northern Territory. Brief mention because it's genuinely underutilized in these conversations. Darwin. The capital. Median house price around $490,000. Above our threshold. But outer Darwin suburbs and satellite towns are still accessible. Katherine. About 300 kilometres south of Darwin. Median around $260,000 to $300,000. Strong defence sector presence. Tourism. agriculture. The NT government has consistently invested in Katherine's infrastructure. Not without risk. The market is thin and liquidity is low, but the yields are extraordinary at 8 to 10% gross in some cases. Now, before we close, the framework you should use to assess any suburb under $400,000. Because a list of locations is only useful if you know how to evaluate what you're looking at. Ask 4 things. First, what does this town's economy depend on? One employer or industry is higher risk. Diversified economies are more stable. A regional hospital, a university, a port, a transport hub. These things don't disappear overnight. Second, what is the rental vacancy rate? Under 2% is tight. Under 1.5% is very tight. Tight vacancy means demand for housing consistently exceeds supply, which is the fundamental condition that pushes prices upward over time. Third, is population growing, stable, or shrinking? Population growth creates housing demand. Shrinking population is the warning sign that no amount of cheap price can overcome long term. Fourth, what is the infrastructure pipeline? Is there a hospital upgrade, a transport connection, a renewable energy project, a university campus expansion happening nearby? Government and private infrastructure spending is one of the most reliable leading indicators of regional property value growth. Run every suburb on that 4-question framework before you go near a property portal. Because the question is never just, is it cheap? The question is it cheap and about to get more expensive for real reasons? The answer to that question exists in places across Queensland, South Australia, Western Australia, Tasmania, New South Wales, and the Territory right now. Not many, but enough. And enough is all you need. If this helped you think differently about where the opportunities actually are in Australian property right now, hit the like button and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.